So, I bought speakers. Now, this is going to be my review on the Monitor Audio Bronze 50s. These are, I would say, at least an entry into, let's say, proper hi-fi systems. These speakers got very good reception if you're hovering around the 500 to 600 US dollar range. I bought this for 1.9k Malaysian ringgit, which is quite a deal back then, and currently right now, if I'm not mistaken, you could get it from Choi Audio for even cheaper. Links in the description below if you want to take a look at it. But anyways, I'm not affiliated or anything. I've used this for 2 months and it's time for a review. It's time for a review for a usual guy that uses IEMs to talk about how does he feel about these speakers. But before we get into that, thank you for everybody who are watching this. Just give it a like, just give it a subscribe, comment anything that you want. Basically, you have a two-way system, the 5.5-inch alloy woofer, and as well as a small 25mm tweeter, which is also again made from a metal dome. And the special part about what Monitor Audio has delivered to us is saying two things. One of them is regarding the tweeter. The so-called, as you can see, the grill right here, it's not only to protect the speaker, it's also a form of waveguide so that this thing will have better precision. And the second thing is also within the 50-50 realm. They also have something called the Hive 2 port, which is basically something to prevent chuffing. Chuffing is basically when you hear something is like, a little bit more congested. The sub bass just can't come out fully, which I personally will agree that this thing works, but it's really dependent on how you place the speakers in your room as well. Now, one more thing I forgot to mention in the Hive part. If let's say that you are putting this a little bit too close to the wall, like in my case, 1 feet away from the wall, as you can see right here. So if this is the case, then basically you can have this foam and you could just stuff it in so that it does not really have that level of bloatiness. It does not bounce off the wall that much. But at the same time, doing that will definitely reduce the level of bass, and it might basically just reduce what you are being expected when you're basically what you are being expected when you're listening to this. Like the bass might be not that good. Back to video. It definitely helps, and I would say the limiting factor for me personally right now is I can't really put my speakers anywhere that's more further from what's back here. But okay, enough of all that. The more exciting part, and also the main reason why I personally want this, me knowing that it's more like a metal dome so that it has a more hi-fi-ish, a more modern sound signature, is the fact that it can go down to 40 Hertz. Like 40 Hertz is quite low for a bookshelf speaker. Like honestly, you can't really find things that are capable of doing things that are this low, to the point where you feel like you're fine without a woofer. You don't really need to upgrade. At this point, upgrading is only when, I probably have too much money, I have nothing else to spend. Okay, let's go get a woofer. That's about it. But that is like probably the least of what I want in the future, because these things handle bass very, very well. Sensitivity is 85 dB. So for me, in my living room, which is from about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is about 18 feet by 12 feet, it gets the job done. It fills up the room quite well. Nominal impedance is 8 ohms, which is quite good. And last but not least, before we get into the sound, please take note that whatever I review right now is a little bit more iffy, mainly because speakers are more subjected to change in terms of the sound signature ever so slightly by the amplifiers. I'm currently running these through the vintage NAD310 amplifiers, so it might sound more luscious and more forward in the vocals, but I wouldn't really say it will affect that much. And with all that being said, I don't think there's any much more to talk about other than, let's just get onto the sound. First impressions, dynamics are amazing, very modern sounding. Things are just very, very clear. I personally like it a lot. And I think this is one of the few things that whenever I get something, sometimes you really need to sit for a while and be like, okay, I think I could lie to myself saying that this thing is worth it. The moment I set this up, Like even prior to having speaker stands, even prior to having spikes, I already can't stop grinning whenever I start to listen to the Bronze 50s. Like it is that good. Starting off with the bass as usual, I would say this is again probably the most amazing and the most compelling selling point of this Bronze 50s right here. Despite its small form factor, this thing really packs a punch in terms of its bass, but it's not to the point where like every time you talk about IEMs, it's very bloated and so on and so forth. Imagine the Alpha Omega Andromeda. No, not the Andromeda. The Alpha Omega Ra, but with even cleaner bass. Like the bass is plentiful, the sub bass goes down to 40 Hz, so it's quite there. And at the same time, you still get to retain a lot of resolution throughout. Everything is very, very good. And again, unlike IEMs, this thing is more subjected to room treatment. The thing could be punchier if I had better room treatment. So as it is, I would say it's already very amazing, despite the fact that it's only about like, 1 feet away from the wall. You don't really need that much room treatment, but the room treatment thing actually enhances your experience even more. It just depends on how much you can do it. Bass licks overall, due to the fact that it can go so low in terms of the bass, might sound a little bit darker, but overall it still emphasizes a lot on the low end from what I could hear. And speaking of low end, drums, kicks, basically everything sounds quite luscious. For people who are very, very associated to IEM sound signature, I would say the soundstage might throw you a little bit off because this thing has quite a good level of diffusal in terms of like kicks. Things sound airy, but it's not airy to the point where, wow, you feel very immersive. You feel like it's in your face. It just dissolves, diffuses around the room, if it makes any sense. But just maybe, it might be lacking a little bit of an aggressiveness due to, first of all, I'm using a vintage amp, and the second thing is due to the fact that, like I said, this thing has a more diffused feeling than what you're usually associated to. They don't really carry exactly the same feeling of a sound stage when you are listening to these comparing to things in your ear. Mids, overall, everything is quite forward, everything is quite neutral in terms of tonality, everything has a very good sparkle, has a very strong resolution to it. Vocals, again, are not colored in any way, and the only specific difference that I could find is that, female vocals are a little bit more body and a little bit more weighty, but they don't have any levels of hollowness. Sibilance is basically nil in terms of this. Everything sounds crystal clear, and with the aid of very, very good technicalities aiding to the waveguide by the tweeters, I could feel like the vocalist is really literally like in front of me, like straight line. You can feel like it's as thin as a person's head, if it makes any sense. If I'm sitting exactly at this spot, the same as the camera, which is about 10 feet away from the speakers, you can feel like the vocalist is as forward as the TV right there. But the space behind it, you can feel like there's still a lot of space behind it, despite the fact that I didn't have any isolation panels beside. So this thing in itself really ties it all together to, let's say, what it tries to achieve, what it tries to deliver. It tells you that this thing, you can just position it a little bit more willy-nilly and you can still get like at least 90% of what an ideal listening space is. And like I said it again and again, it can only get even better if you treat your room even better. And treble overall, again, owing to the tweeter, everything is bright, everything has very, very good sparkle. I wouldn't really talk that much about the technicalities because at this point, this thing is already quite good, and soundstage is very subjective at this point due to the fact that your room is a very big factor. Imaging though, I could really talk about imaging. Now this is something that's a little bit off tangent, but I had already quite a good impression when I used this without any spikes, but the moment these things are being elevated with spikes, the imaging just got even better. Like things went from this much to, let's say, an area, let's say a vocalist, to this much. It shrinks by over half. I don't really know how to explain this, but I hope you get what I mean. Things are very precise. Things are very, very good, are very crystal clear. They don't really have an ambiguity in it in terms of where the placement is throughout. And overall, I don't really have that much to say anymore other than this is a very good speaker. It's in between musical and analytical as well. It's not too musical to the point where, things are too relaxed, you don't really get that much detail. But at the same time, I'm a more detail horror, like I always say. I enjoy analyticalness. This thing delivers it just enough, and probably even more. things are very separated overall, to the point where I'm like, wow, I could actually, you know, analyze everything properly. Like I could even use these to mix my music. And in terms of how this thing overall sounds with and without the grill, definitely without the grill things will sound a little bit muffled, so that's why I prefer to keep these off. And definitely even when you keep these off, these have such a modern vibe, so I kind of like it. One more specific thing about these speakers: they can be bi-wired, so I bi-wired it with two specific speaker cables. One is again given by Choi Audio. They are using the AudioQuest cables. I forgot the specific number, but I'll just put it here. And the second thing is, you know, an OEM pure silver cable. Adding just the AudioQuest cable, everything sounds very standard, very V-shaped. Bi-wiring it definitely helps to clean up a lot of the low range and the mid-range. It definitely increases the resolution. I don't really have anything else to say. For this price, for the things that I'm getting, it's definitely a bargain at this point. Monitor Audio has definitely done something that is very specific and very amazing. And even though for the fact that these are only 85 dBs, they definitely fill up the room a lot. It doesn't really empty out your pockets that much, but they definitely are delivering a ton to you. Like, the worth is really there. Like, even let me just, you know, go on a slight rant. I brought my friend over here, and the moment that he listened to this, the only thing that he mentioned is that this bass does not sound cheap. How much was it? 2K? Oh, I would think I at least need to pay like 4 to 5K for these levels of bass. Most people really enjoy the bass, but at the same time, the bass does not really muddy everything else. As long as you have very good placement of everything, things just sound amazing. And I would say that is probably it for this video. Thank you for watching. Hopefully there will be more different content, a little bit more different than what I usually do in terms of IEMs. But as always, you know, whenever I have something to do, whenever I have something interesting to review, I'll just, you know, put it on YouTube, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. Thank you for watching. Please comment, please subscribe, please do whatever to make this channel keep going, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.